Oh, I'm back with another review with one of my friends,
Hello.
and we'll be reviewing Galaxy Quest.
Yes. I This is a classic movie of mine, a favorite movie from my childhood, and he hasn't seen it till recently, so we sat down and watched it together.
I actually have known about it for years because I remember it was specifically on the Chicken Run VHS because this movie was made by DreamWorks, and I remember on the VHS there was like this preview, like, oh, get Galaxy Quest, on video now,
Yeah.
and I was like, what is this sci-fi movie? I always wondered what it was, and then when you told me about it, I was like, yes, it's that one.
Yes.
And,
It's
back from when I was a kid and watching that preview on that VHS, the one thing I remember the most was when one of the characters had his nose grabbed by the alien.
yeah.
That was the one thing I remember from that VHS preview.
Yeah, and this movie is essentially a must for all sci-fi fans, basically, because it's like a movie made by sci-fi fans for sci-fi fans. You know?
And so essentially, Galaxy Quest it's like a parody of Star Trek.
Yeah, but it's both parody, like satire, but it can also be taken seriously, like a show within a show within a show aspect.
Because like these characters are actors for the show called Galaxy Quest.
Yeah, it starts at a convention, and uh, the lead, who is Tim Allen, is kind of like this macho kind of Kirk parody.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's one character, I was like, that's clearly like Wesley Crusher or like.
Yeah, Tommy Weber, he's Laredo in the show.
Yeah, I was just like, oh yeah, it's like Wesley Crusher, and of course Enterprise hasn't aired yet. Like Travis Mayweather,
Yeah,
because
and
the character was black.
yeah,
Because this movie came out in 1999,
yeah.
and Enterprise was 2001. But it just reminded me of that.
Yeah, and Alexander Dane is or who plays Dr. Lazarus with the goofy forehead thing is like this Spock analog where he can only be known for ever playing Spock and nothing else. That's
Yeah,
anything else about the convention?
I was just like, yes, these geeks, I love them.
Yeah, it- and it's so funny to watch Alan Rickman just go through this road that he's trapped in and he doesn't want to be in anymore.
Oh yeah, I love how grumpy he was. He was just like, ugh,
Yeah,
gotta put on this makeup again. I gotta do this gig.
and
And it's kind of clear. It's just like going to these conventions is like their only income. It seems like
Yeah. His thing isn't live long and prosper. It's by Grabthar's hammer, by the sons of Warvan, you shall be avenged.
that's pretty cool. If Galaxy Quest was a real series, I would watch it.
Yeah, it's and so at the convention, this Tim Allen character who's the Kirk parody, his name is Jason Nesmith. He plays Commander Peter Quincy Taggart. Is approached by real aliens. He doesn't know the real aliens at the time to help them with a real galactic threat, and it's funny. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I love that. It's like they think, oh, you're the real people. You're these real, space explorers.
Yeah, he's really not taking it seriously himself either. He's kind of hung over because he had a bad night after some, haters gonna hate at the convention. Cat,
Yeah, because I remember he was just like, oh yeah, yeah, this is a fan thing, and then you realize, whoa, this is real.
yeah. So he's dealing with this threat they have to deal with. Saris, this big menacing kind of general who's just all spiked out and he's got an eye patch, but
Yeah, I'm trying to think what he reminds me of.
the Grinch or the Yuzon Wong.
Like a mix of the Vong, the Grinch, and the one of the species of the Zindi.
Yeah, something like that. He's just very intimidating. He's not scared at all because he thinks it's some kind of cosplay deal where they're just reenacting stuff.
Oh yeah, it was the Zindi reptilians that specifically it reminded me of.
I mean, because he looks that way, especially with those wing things.
And I just love those little alien guys with the black hair. They're so goofy.
Yeah, the Thermians.
The
They're
Thermians kind of remind me of like a mix of the Vulcans and the Oompa Loompas.
Yeah, Ceres is basically the one systematically slaughtering and exterminating the Thermians. Their problem is that they're these squid aliens who can disguise themselves, and they're essentially childlike. They picked up transmissions of the show into space, and they just assumed it was real and built their whole society after that. Any thoughts on that?
It is goofy.
Yeah. So
And as that trailer preview would say, this is all just a misunderstanding.
one could almost see the Thermians as kind of fan allegories. They're having to be told by their heroes that it's not real, get a life, which was all the rage back then.
Yeah, and I remember that one of the fans was told that.
Yeah, by Shatner.
That later helped him out on his computer by because he had the ship, layout and schematics on his computer.
That's a bit further ahead though. Basically, Jason decides to take it a lot more seriously when he's opened up into space and covered in this cocoon and shot back towards Earth. What he wants to do is he wants to recruit everyone to help him with the emergency with Ceres. So, and they don't believe him, of course, until they're beamed up. That's what's funny about this is if you're not familiar with Star Trek, there's the idea of the expendable crew member who dies to prove the situation is serious. We call them red shirts. And there's a red shirt on this show who's just an ascended extra, but now he's afraid that he's the red shirt. He's gonna die to prove this.
He's like, oh no, it's gonna be like real life, man, or in the show. It's gonna happen in real life.
Here's a fun fact: ILM did the effects for this movie, I believe. And say what you want, they hold up a lot better than a lot of effects today, and they're more creative too.
Oh yeah, like they go down to this planet and there's like this rock alien, and it reminded me of the stone taluses from Zelda Breath of the Wild, because scattered throughout the world in that game, there's those stone taluses, and they're literally just like that, and they're like sort of hard to defeat. There's like a specific spot on them you have to attack in order to destroy them.
Yeah, and that was after their second confrontation with Ceres, though, and he totally kicks her asses. They end up going through a minefield, just exploding, and
the ship just gets utterly disabled.
The comedy is these inexperienced actors are being thrown into the real situation, and they're just crumbling. They're
like, what do we do? We follow the script, but what do we actually do?
They're whining, they're screaming. In fact, later on, there's this scene where they have to go through just stompy, crunchy things in the middle of the hallway for no reason. And they're complaining about how this episode was badly written. And then there's fire, and she's like, whoever wrote this episode should die! It's hilarious. Yeah.
If they made this today, they'd probably be a lot more harsh on fandom.
Probably.
And demonize fans.
Yeah, I mean,
like the whole toxic fan accusation, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm glad this movie was made in the 90s.
They were going to do, for a while, they were going to do it as a TV series. Then Alan Rickman died. And not to speak well of someone's death, I'm not happy that he died, but at least it means that out of respect for him, they didn't try to bring it back, which wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, that's good.
Basically, this story is a coming of age or a character journey for each of them. They each have their moments. Jason Nesmith has to learn to share the spotlight. Alexander Dane embraces his role a bit more. When Ceres takes over the ship, they have to basically find ways to outsmart him and learn to be the roles instead of just trying to be themselves.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't talk about, what's her name? Was her name Gwen?
Yeah, Gwen DeMarco. She plays Tawny Madison on the show.
She was kind of like Troy.
Or Uhura. Her job is
Uhura and Troy, yeah.
Their job is literally to just repeat whatever the computer says. It's demeaning, and that's the point. But
And she was basically pretty face too.
yeah, but they all got to do something at the end. Like I said, during this when Sarah takes over the ship, they have to. He had dropped his communicator when he first came back to Earth with one of these super fans, and he had to communicate with him to get his help with technicals.
Yeah, that was the part I mentioned earlier with, like, the computer. He has the technical things from the ship and the layout,
Yeah.
and that helped him get through there.
What's interesting about Ceres is I've become a big giant Babylon 5 fan, and he played a handful of minor roles throughout that. He was a Minbari, he was a Narn, just stuff like that.
Oh, really? He was in Babylon 5?
Yeah, a few times. He was the Minbari who welcomed Captain Sheridan to the station, and he was the Narn that escaped what happened to his homeworld and met up with Jakar, and when they were taking on the Shadows, basically.
Yes. Yeah, and by the way, people, we're gonna start Babylon 5 like pretty soon.
Yeah, just as soon as we get done with Stargate, we're pretty close to being done. And then we're gonna have a big giant podcast with Matt and Scoundrels Cantina and other people. It's gonna be fun.
Oh yes, I look
So
forward to it because last time I had Matt on my channel was like 2 years ago, and it would be so great to have him on again.
trying to think of what else we could say about this. But what I like is, their ship, the NSCA Protector, looks kind of like a mix of the Ori motherships and the Sovereign class Enterprise E and the NX class from Enterprise.
I agree because if you've seen Stargate, the Ori have like these kind of shapes that have like this rounded hole, very elegant looking, very
They're like a
majestic.
they're like a signet ring. And,
Yeah, exactly. And
and the Sovereign class has this kind of swoop back fin look to it thanks to the nacelles. So it's
mhm.
that too. It
And there's a part that sort of reminds you of the Franklin or the NX Enterprise.
I do have something to bring up. It's when they're down on the planet, after they were driven into the minefield during their second confrontation and they broke the ship, they need to get new power. So they head down to the planet and there, there's, um,
Oh yeah, it's the same planet where they encounter the rock monster,
yeah. I was going to bring up something, but I lost my train of thought.
and they're looking for this like power core thing.
Now I remember it's their version of a transporter. And they gotta beam him up in order to get him away from this rock monster, and they test it on this pig lizard first.
Oh, and it's inside out, and it was that poor thing suffering. It got inside out and it's alive for a few seconds, and then it goes.
Just explodes. And because the Thermies have no concept of deception, it's a foreign idea to them. One is nearby and he's being completely honest. And it's funny dialogue. What's that? I heard some squealing or something. Oh, it's nothing, except the animal is turned inside out. I heard that. It turned inside out. Boom! And then it exploded. I hear that animal just turned inside out and then it exploded. It's hilarious. And on the same planet as these little kind of, they call them the demon child. They're these kind of little helpless, vulnerable looking things, and they take it.
They'll eat, pretty much anything. They'll eat their own kind if they're weak.
Wounded. Yeah, it's funny. One thing I want to bring up is like Tommy Laredo or Tommy Weber, who plays Laredo. He's like this. His journey has to be the best because when he first drives the ship, he runs it into the side of the space dock, and then he has to drive through the minefield later. He's doing a lot better job.
Yeah, so there's that growth there.
Yeah. Oh, Tech Sergeant Chen, played by Fred Kwan, his big journey is that basically by getting more confidence and becoming the transporter chief, he gets to have this alien squid girl, one of the Thermians.
I mean, she was pretty cute.
Yeah.
No hentai, man. No.
Yeah, save that for the fanfics.
Yes.
Probably the best thing we could bring up is that, ooh, there's this device called the Omega 13. Want to describe it? The Omega 13.
Yes. Omega 13.
Well, they speculated for a while about what it could be because the show ended before they could figure out what it is. Either it's a bomb that blows up everything, or it can rewind everything by like 13 seconds.
And that does happen in the movie. I won't say
It's to
what
correct.
context they use it for, but it does really help out. And
It is to, as they say, it's not enough time to do something significant, but it can redeem a single mistake, and that's what they do. Basically, at the end of the show, they crash down into a convention after they've been missing for several days. And
just
the show
imagine like the fans reacting to that, like, "Ooh, here's this ship."
and the show gets renewed. Basically, Jason's character comes full circle when he decides to share a spotlight and invite them up for the bows. It's all around good, wholesome family fun.
Yep. And I love how the red shirt, gets an actual last name on the show.
And he's basically bumped up to security chief. Yeah, so live it up, guy. You made it.
Great, fun 90s entertainment.
Yeah. It just ends with the show back and them warping off to some new adventures. There's always possibilities, or as Jason himself says, never give up, never surrender.
I love that.
Yeah, it definitely holds up to rewatches by a mile.
And it really makes me want to rewatch Star Trek.
Yeah, it does that. Basically anyone can see the object of their desire in this. Star Trek's the most obvious one being spoofed, but you can see Star Wars if you look hard enough. Because ILM is doing the effects, but I see Babylon 5 a bit in the uniform design, the Earth Alliance uniforms, the uniforms they have on the show,
Oh yeah, you could definitely see that.
or Stargate where they're going to these alien worlds and like I said, the Ori ships, just stuff like that.
There had to have been inspiration there.
Yeah, inspiration going both ways, either taking inspiration from Galaxy Quest or Galaxy Quest taking inspiration from something else. It because these super fans are basically building models. They're kind of introverts who stay inside all the time. You know the stereotype.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, any other thoughts on this movie?
Oh, if you're a huge sci-fi fan and Star Trek, Stargate, Babylon, you name it, Babylon 5, um, you'll love this movie.
Or if you just like a good, funny comedy, basically.
And I'm glad I finally, figured out what this movie was after, that VHS thing. Like, what is this movie?
Yeah, for sure. So, is that it?
Yeah, I guess that's all I have to say. Well, so we'll see you whenever we do another review or video. So have a good day, people.
Later.